So for the reports that we did with Task 13 on mapping of technical and economic key performance indicators, or KPIs, there a lot of things came up to the surface that are usually underappreciated by the industry. One of those is the importance of data quality routines, that those need to be discussed at the contractual stage or when systems are going to be financed, so that it's very clear what is going to be the treatment of the data. And an example for that can be around curtailment, because usually many systems, what they do is, if a system is subject to curtailment, whether it is 1% or 10% or 50%, in all cases, they discard the data. The issue with that is that curtailment usually happens at times of high installation. So you already lose valuable data of the performance of your plants when it is very sunny. And additionally, you end up losing potentially quite a bit of data which tells you something about the state of your system. For example, the performance ratio, which is one of the key performance indicators used in the industry, is then often also used to then calculate the degradation or the performance loss rate. And so if you are already measuring and calculating your performance ratio wrong, additional KPIs that are based on that can also be wrong. And so for this, you need the ability to have the contracts well defined. And for those contracts, you already need to think, when you're starting to build a system, how are we going to store the data? Where are we going to store the data? What time resolution do we want? Because usually you cannot go back into the past, or we know that it's impossible, but it's very difficult to reverse some of those decisions. And especially when you look at data losses, it was one of the surprising outcomes of this report that we saw that data losses can be highly impacting on the calculation of some of those KPIs, where, for example, either the asset owner or the installer can get penalized just because of data loss. That excluding that data results in either the installer being penalized because their well-functioning system appears not to be functioning well, or that the asset owner accepts the operation of a plant which has issues and with which they will lose money over time. And so that means that when a system is built and designed and financed, that you already need to think of how much data are you going to be storing? Do you have backups available? Can you have all of those decisions? And in that sense, avoiding to be penny wise and pound foolish. So the impact and the importance of these results is that high quality data is incredibly important. Additionally, you need transparency around how you treat the data, all the way from the moment it is measured to the point where it is used. And that means that when you have a system that may have curtailment, and that the contract says, when there is curtailment, we will exclude the data. If it is in a location where not much curtailment happens, that is not that much of an issue. But if you end up in a situation where a lot of curtailment happens, for example, every single day in some parts in the world, then you may end up discarding a huge amount of data. Additionally, not only is it when curtailment happens, but how much is, because 1% or 5% curtailment may not affect your power plant that much, whereas as soon as you start to have situations of 10% or 50% curtailment on your power plants, then it really starts to affect the performance of your plants. Connected to that is also the issue that, for example, again with curtailment, that usually happens at times of high irradiance. And as a result, if you're then discarding those data points, you may be losing very valuable information for your system. So the impacts and benefits of Task 13 are not only at an individual level, because you get enriched by different viewpoints, insights from different countries where if you happen to live in Belgium or Holland, you may not have many hurricanes or tornadoes yet, but it may happen in the future. And so if you then see the insights from a different country, that is very useful to already start to see how can we use the learnings from elsewhere and use them locally. And we saw that already in the past in reports where we looked at operation and maintenance practices in different countries, where exactly this, because of climate change, that, for example, areas in the southeast of Asia may have already see quite a lot of flooding activities, and that those insights on how do you then treat or maintain your system after it has been subjected to flooding, that you can use those insights from somewhere else in the world and use them locally. Moreover, what I've also seen is that the huge benefit of IEA PVPS reports is that they're public and they gather the best known state of the art at the moment. And so it means that asset owners or investors or engineers can really get up to speed quite quickly as to what is the best practices in the industry, and it helps to avoid easy mistakes. And unfortunately, I've also seen examples of cases where reports existed that companies did not know that the report existed, and they committed the exact mistake that a Task 13 report warned against. So it is also that everyone should do their homework, and the nice thing is the cheat sheet is the Task 13 reports. So in the coming phase of 2026 onwards, Task 13 is going to have a task on best practices around revamping and repowering practices. And that is linked in part to the age of some systems that are already reaching their end of their 25-year expected life. But on the other hand, also due to extreme weather events damaging systems dramatically earlier than expected. And so there is still an enormous amount of possibilities which are linked both to technical issues around, is your inverter compatible with the module, all the way to legal and technical as to, are you allowed to shut down your power plant for a few months so that you can revamp it, but maybe your contract does not allow that. And so for this, we're looking to gather information and best practices from around the world, again, so that people who may be confronted with a repowering decision in their case, that they at least can get inspired or at least find some solutions so that they can avoid some of the easy mistakes.